It's always has to be said. Has to be mevushal, has to be cooked. Everyone see this? Has to be cooked, it has to be blech, has to be warm. Then come other conditions that are machlekes, which you have to keep on our opinions also, and that is 4, 5, 6. That is, has to be beyond, it has to be still in your hand. It has to be damitoi machavida. So just put intention. I didn't, English better, right? No,
English is good.
English works, really? No. Intention, you had intention to return it to the fire. You had intention to put it back onto the fire. Another one is, what's the term, what did we use last time?
The pot was never emptied.
That's what we wrote, what's the term we used?
I didn't put nakados, but
Like peanut.
yeah.
Anyway, sick.
Rush.
Pot was never empty. Let's see what I put in. Food.
I can spell it for you, but I don't know how it's
No, I
pronounced.
can spell that. I'm just trying to think of an easy term to cooking. I'm just gonna put it. Wasn't transferred. Because that's really what it is. Wasn't transferred. It was never transferred. See, if you write in the same vessel, that's not good. Because if you transfer and you put it back, that's also no good. Doesn't help putting it back. The food was never transferred. Is everyone with us here today? Yeah, wasn't, spaces. Wasn't transferred. The food was never transferred. It's another vessel. These three conditions is a machlekes, which means if you're desperate and you're really, you're really upset about that you can't put it back, there is room to be, there's flexibility. Okay, now let's move on to the next thing. Okay, so this was what we did till now, but now we're going to talk about the hot plate. A hot plate. What's the name of a hot plate? Everyone knows what a hot plate is? Hot plate, different types of hot plates. We're going to talk about a hot plate that does not have any settings. You cannot make it higher. You plug it in and that's it. You can't make it higher. So now, is that like a blech? In other words, if I have food there before Shabbos and I want to take it off and put it back, is it like a blech? Now, there is no blech. The hot plate doesn't have a blech. Let's say it doesn't have a blech. Right? It's just a sheet of metal that's very hot. That's the heating element. You didn't put a blech on it. Do you need a blech? Okay, understand the question? Do you need a blech? So if there is no settings, means you can't make it higher, you don't need a blech. Because the purpose of the blech is shema yachata, you might stir the coals, you might make the fire higher. That's the reason why you have to have a blech, to remind you not to make it higher. If you can't make it higher, because it only has one setting, you can't make it higher, so there's no concern you're going to make it higher, because you can't make it higher. So then you don't need the blech. Now I'm talking about it specifically, we're not discussing here leaving food on the fire, discussing now putting back food to the fire. So if you want to put the pat, so to take, right, so if there's a pot on the fire and you want to put it back, it's like you have a blech already. So now the blech you don't need a blech. Now what about the conditions? Yes, you need conditions. You need to have all these conditions. And the reason for these conditions are Nira Kimavasha, it looks like you're cooking. It gives the impression of cooking. That's the reason for all these conditions. And even though people don't cook on a hot plate, but it's very hot and it's able to cook. It has the ability to cook. Therefore, most opinions say that if you have on a hot plate food and you take it off and want to put it back, you must keep the conditions. That's what most opinions say. So in other words, there is a lenient opinion. There is a lenient opinion that says they can actually take cold potato kugel, take it out of the refrigerator and put it to start with directly on the hot plate on Shabbos. As long as it's completely dry and you're not doing cooking, there is an opinion. We don't go by that opinion, but there is such an opinion. It's a very lenient opinion. It's not accepted. But there is a opinion that says that you can do it, and the reason is that opinion says no one cooks on a hot plate. The reason why you need all these conditions is because it looks like cooking. That's the reason why you need conditions. That should be a continuation of it shouldn't look like cooking. So there is a lenient opinion that says it's okay. But so once when I taught a class, so when it wasn't there somewhere else, one of the girls said, "Oh, at home we put it that we do put on the hot plate." So I said, "There is such an opinion. You know, we don't want to tell that what they're doing is wrong, but made it clear that most opinions don't agree with this. But there is a lenient opinion. So if someone does it, you can't say it's wrong, but it's also not right. I mean, it's not like sometimes we have machlokes and we say, "Oh, you can be lenient." Over here, the vast majority of opinions don't accept it. They hold that you cannot do it. You have to treat it though. It's like there's a blech already. And even when there's a blech, that means you cannot, in a regular case of blech, can you take cold potato and put it directly on the blech? Directly over the fire? No.
It's not called
One of the
left
con-
if you put
One
it
of the
where,
conditions is that it's only chazor, only returning. You can't put it for the first time. So that's how we follow. You don't take cold food. I can't even say cold to make clear because of the issue of Bishul. Because if it is cooking, if the issue of cooking, for sure you can. You don't put put food directly on the hot plate, the chatzkel on Shabbos. If it was there, you want to take it off, put it back, that's fine. And it's as if there's a blech, even though there's no blech, that's fine. Keep all the conditions, just like you do with the blech, that's fine. If there is no settings, if you can't make it higher, if the hot plate you can make higher, then you need to have a blech, just like with the stovetop, you need a blech to be able to return it. Clear?
and it's not called the part of the blech. If it's like 4
Right.
burners, you put it.
Right, okay, so whenever we said it last time, but I know it's confusing, whenever we talk about putting on the blech, we mean directly over the fire. And I mentioned last time, there's different opinions, and to simplify it, we're going to keep a few inches around the fire like the blech to be strict. Like more than like 3-4 inches away, it's not so hard over there. You could be lenient, some would be a little more strict, but yeah.
So just to make it clear, there's no opinion that says you can put cold things on a blech.
Correct. According to all opinions, you cannot take cold, dry food. There's no problem with cooking, no problem with Bishul. And to take them and put it on the blech, when I say on the blech, I mean over the fire. Everyone says you can't do that. Because to put food on the fire, you need all these conditions. And the main condition, which is a given, is that it's only for returning, not for putting for the first time. The whole idea why it's allowed to return is because why you're allowed to return it with all these conditions, because then it doesn't look like you're cooking. It looks like it's a continuation from before. But if you're putting it for the first time on Shabbos, that's absolutely not allowed. That neither can it looks like you're cooking.
I'm trying to understand what we said the most like this is like you said with that student. That we can return it, and it will always be
Right,
on the
there
handle.
is an opinion that says that you could put l'chatchila cold food on a hot plate that only has one setting. And the reason for that opinion is because that opinion says, what's the problem? The problem why you can't put on the black is because it looks like cooking. But people don't cook on a hot plate. And it's true, people don't cook on a hot plate. So that opinion says it doesn't look like cooking, you don't cook on a hot plate. But most opinions don't accept it because the hot plate does get very hot, and you are able to cook. So even though people don't actually cook, most opinions accept that it's not allowed.
But you said if there is that one setting, there's leniency there, but that's not common.
If there's,
If they don't, the
No
hot
sense.
plate doesn't have like a setting to go higher, then
Right.
it's like a leniency to put.
so to put cold, dry, there's no problem with Bishul, it's a big leniency. So you can't say it's totally, against the halacha, but it's most opinions don't accept it.
And with that, if that happens on Shabbos, can you eat that food?
If people get leniency,
If they're not even aware of the leniency,
it's a leniency, you know,
Yeah.
if they're doing, if, you know, you can, eat- because it has no leniency, you could do.
but if I see that it, the black, or I'm sorry, the hot plate does have settings, then like I wouldn't be complimented to, no.
If it has settings, then you need a blend. And then you don't want to think, put it on the fire, you put on Shabbos, not before.
No,
If there's
it's the
no-
hot plate. It's in the hot
On
plate.
hot plate, and it has settings,
Yeah,
and the food is there. It was put on Shabbos or before Shabbos?
it was put on Shabbos, and then I'm thinking of the situation out, it was put on Shabbos, they took it back, and then the next morning they put it on. On the hot plate. Again,
And it has settings.
yeah,
So then it's the same like the blech. A blech, you, on the stove company, you must have a blech because you can make it higher and lower. So then you must have a blech, and that means. It's gonna be a problem, you won't be able to eat it. Assuming, which is usually the case, that you actually benefited from the fact that it was returned to the fire. If you benefited from the fact that it was returned to the fire, then you wouldn't be allowed to consume it, because that's absolutely not allowed. Again, we're talking about when there is settings, you can make it higher. If there's no settings at all, then you could do it.
and
Yeah.
if there's like a pot that stays on the entire Shabbos. But they move it from like one part of the hot plate to another.
It says on car shops and what?
If they move one, like the left side of the hot plate to the right side of the hot plate, is there an issue there?
No,
Then there's like.
on one side, right, it's all part of the same thing, you know,
Fine.
it's not.
I just wasn't sure if there was an issue with moving it, if it wasn't for like, if you're gonna directly, eat from it, like if you just move it from one place to another, taking something else.
It's the same thing, you know,
But,
one thing, you know, just really compare it to him.
mhm.
No problem, right? Okay. We pretty much finished these on office. In the last class we spoke about, just to go over, we discussed last class, the amount of heat up food on top of another pot. You can put food on top of a pot, that's not a problem. You don't need any conditions of blech, or whatever we discussed, you're putting it on top of another pot. And then there is a lenient opinion, but this lenient opinion is more accepted than the lenient opinion we spoke about before. In terms of hot plates, and then there is an opinion that says that you could take an empty pot, turn it upside down. And put a pot of food on top of it. Not everyone accepts it, but my father does not hold of it. But there's other Rabbanim who say that it's okay, but not inside the pot. It's a pot that has a certain amount, should have a significant amount of height, like a regular pot, not like a frying pan. Right, so, and then you turn it upside down, and you put food on it. Our opinions that say that's okay, because according to all opinions, if it's a regular pot with food, you could put food on top of that pot without a problem. Again, when you say without a problem, it means you know for sure it's not going to cook. Because if, let's say, you put a wet piece of chicken schnitzel and you put it on top of the pot, and the pot is very hot and it's wet, and it's cold liquid, and it's touching the top of the pot, it could cook. So, let's say, so you have to take that in consideration. Usually, if it's inside a pot and you're putting that pot on top of the other pot, then usually it does not have the ability to cook.
If it's wrapped in tinfoil, does that also like count as like a pot on top of a pot?
It's not about calling it a pot. No, question is, will it become yatznas? Will it cook? I never tested, maybe I should. But I know if you're putting it directly on the cover of the pot, it could be an issue, it's wet. But if you put it inside something else, I don't know, it's a factual thing, if the check will the heat get to it, is the pot very hot? I don't know, I don't think so, but I can't say for sure. Okay, so I think we should start the next topic, and that is. We're gonna start the halachos of atmana. Insulating. At least we'll start it today. There's a halacha of atmana. So, here's atmana. Can we erase this? Any questions? Atmana, anyone else know what atmana means? Atmana means insulation. You're not allowed to insulate. Everyone knows about insulating and other things. This is one type of insulation, different type of insulation. Atmana means to insulate. You're not allowed to insulate food before Shabbos, which means if it was very common in those days that they would take a pot of hot food and they wanted the food should stay hot till the next morning, and to have a fire burning the entire night was almost impossible to keep it burning all night back in those days. So it was common they would take the pot of food, they would wrap it up very well before Shabbos and keep it hot for Shabbos. So even though it's before Shabbos, but you're not allowed to insulate a material that is moisev hevel, that intensifies the heat. I'll use my sugar to get it somewhere. Yeah. That's mine. You're not allowed to insulate even before Shabbos in something that's moisev hevel. This is the classical word in halacha. Moisev, it adds, hevel means heat. Hevel is heat. Sometimes it means air. You have Parshas Bereshis, Kain and Hevel. There was a name of a person, but here hevel means heat. You cannot insulate before Shabbos food. It doesn't make a difference if the food is cold or hot, actually. You cannot insulate it in the material that intensifies the heat. What is the material that intensifies the heat? So it's actually very interesting, and some of them are not practical. I'm going to talk about something practical. I just want to show you in halacha how you have different examples of materials that intensify the heat that you don't use these days. Leftovers of olives, salt, sand, wet grass. Yeah, wet grass, wet material, soft material that's wet. But let me be more precise. Wet cotton, that's what it is. Wet cotton. These are all materials that intensify the heat. So if you take a pot and stick it before Shabbos into a thing covered with salt, the pot, you're not allowed to do that.
Darn.
Practical. Okay, now what is practical about, what's a practical example of material that's moist and heavy? You take the bottom chont, you wrap it up in a towel, and you put it on top of the blech. That's in the category of moist and heavy. Materials that add heat, which you're not allowed. So you're not allowed before Shabbos to take your bottom chont and you want to keep it on the blech. Well, the fire is not so high, you want it to be really hot, and now it's like really. So you're gonna take the pot, wrap it up really good, and put it on the blech, let's say safe, you say like you put the towels on the fire. We're not discussing the practical aspect. Well, let's say you have a way to do it. You're not allowed to do that before Shabbos. Another example. Sometimes people have a hot water urn and they have a little it's like a jacket. It's like something that covers it to keep it really hot. So it goes down and covers it. You can't do that, even though you do it before Shabbos. That is the category of moisev hevel. It's a material that intensifies the heat. Now, the towel is not really a material that intensifies heat. And the thing that you're putting over the earth is not a material that intensifies heat. However, why is it considered that intensifies heat? Anyone can tell me?
It insulates it. Like it doesn't let heat escape.
Okay, so before Shabbos, I'm allowed to take a pot, listen carefully. Before Shabbos, I'm allowed to take a pot off the blech and wrap it with towels. I'm allowed to do that. Because towel is something that does not intensify heat. Towel is only something that retains heat. It does not intensify heat. So I'm allowed to take it, when I do it a lot of times, especially in summer, I do it with the soup. A lot of times in the summer, I don't want my whole house to become hot. So what I do is I take the pot off the fire when it's boiling hot. I don't want the burner burning the whole Shabbos. I need the soup in 3 hours from now, and then the burner has to be on the whole Shabbos. What do I need this for? So I bring it to a rapid boil, and then I take it off the fire. I wrap up the pot with towels, but I wrap it up really well. Now, a trick, a method. You would call methods tricks. A way how to keep the food really hot, to keep it that temperature for many hours, is you wrap it up with towels until when you put your hand against the towel, you don't feel heat. Get it? In other words, if you wrap a pot with a towel, and then you put your hand by the towel, it's warm, right? Because the heat, if you follow what I'm saying, the heat goes through the towel and you feel it. That means there's heat coming out. You're losing heat. If you want the pot to stay really hot, you put another towel until when you put your hand against the towel, and also put it flush, put it together. When you put your hand by the towel, you feel the heat. I mean, there's no heat coming out. Anyways, practical advice. But you're allowed to do that before Shabbos. But before I said you're not allowed.
If you're putting it back on the fire,
Very good, exactly. So when you're taking the pot and you're wrapping it with a towel and you're putting it on the fire, that's not allowed. You're putting it off the fire, it's allowed. Why on the fire it's not allowed? Because it's in the category of Meisiv Hevel, it adds heat. You cannot wrap before Shabbos in materials that is Meisiv Hevel, that adds heat. Meisiv Hevel, it adds heat. You cannot do that. Here's Erev Shabbos. Shabbos. Osir, you're not allowed. Reason why I put both, because there's also other things. There's also when it's not Meisiv Hevel. Osir. Yeah, there we go. Adds heat. Here's Ein Meisiv. It does not add heat. What is an example of material that does not add heat? Ein doesn't. What is an example of material that does not add heat? Anyone? I said it before.
Towel,
Towel.
the towels are cotton though. And before you said that,
Wet cotton.
also most towels are like a polyester blend, so they have like some that fake fabric in it, like that's mostly plastic.
Erev Shabbos, before Shabbos, you cannot take a pot, wrap it up with a towel, put it on top of the blech. It adds heat, it's awesome. If you put in a towel off the blech, it doesn't add heat. Mutter, you're allowed. On Shabbos itself, even to take a pot off the blech and wrap it in a towel that doesn't add heat, is still going to be prohibited. So what is the reason why on Shabbos, you cannot take a pot off the blech and wrap it in a towel? Let's say you come Friday night from the show and the fire is off and you want the soup to stay hot, so you're going to take the pot of soup and there's no fire, it's not happening. Wrap it really well. You cannot do that on Shabbos. On Shabbos, you can't do that. I didn't go to the reason for this. And so let's go back. What's the reason? Why did they prohibit it? No one asked. I have to say you cannot wrap, can take a pot and wrap it in the material and put it on the blech. Anyone was the reason or?
Does it look like heat, like cooking? No.
The reason is because back in those days, they would sometimes take a pot of food and wrap it and stick it into ash. There's a leftover fire, there's the ash, there could have been small holes around it, and they would take the pot and stick it inside the leftover ash, which may have some leftover coals in it. But then on Shabbos, you might come to stir the coals. So they said you cannot wrap it in that, you can't stick it into there. And because of that, they said you cannot wrap it in anything that's similar in the sense that it intensifies heat. Now, in case you're wondering, and what happens if someone doesn't? Someone takes a pot of food, that comes the hard part. If someone does before Shabbos, he takes a pot of food and he wraps it in a towel and he puts it on the blech. And it comes Friday night and it's time to serve it, and like, oh my gosh, are you allowed to eat it?
No.
No. You're not allowed to eat it. If it's all about that, because assuming, which is usually the case, that you gained by the fact that it was on the fire, you're not allowed to eat from it.
What is
1 second, let's check it. Actually, I'm not sure about that. I have to look into it. It could be this, halacha, you have the how it's explained, but now, I can't say for sure you're not allowed to eat from it. No, not necessarily as a privilege. We'll have to look into it more. It's not so simple. It's not for sure prohibited. Yeah. No, yeah, what that's one?
Is this thermos? Like,
A thermos?
yeah,
It's okay.
okay.
You can put it in the thermos, yeah. Now, what's the reason why on Shabbos I can't take a pot off the blech? There's no fire over there. I just wrap it up. What's the problem? I'm a concern. Chum said it was back in those days, the fires, weren't as efficient as these days. Imagine what happens. You go on Friday night, you go look into your oven to see how your soup is cooking, how's everything going. And, actually, you go to the oven because you want to take off the soup or whatever hot food you have, and you want to wrap it. Okay, so we're talking about why they made the decree why you can't wrap. A person might go over to his oven, to stove Friday night, and decide to take the pot off the fire, out of the oven, and wrap it up. And why would he want to do it? Because he knows that when the fire works over Shabbos, the fire goes lower and lower, back in those days, lower and lower. And eventually, the food won't be a fire and the food won't be hot. So he figures it makes more sense for me, let me take the food while it's hot, before it cools off, before the fire goes down, and I'll wrap it up. And then when he's about to do that, he takes out the pot, he realizes that the fire has been off already for 2 hours. The food hasn't been cooking, it was cooked already, but the food hasn't been hot already for a long time, and the food is cold. He thought that it was hot, and he thought he's taking out now, and he's gonna wrap it up and it's gonna stay warm, it's gonna stay hot. And now he realizes that it wasn't hot in the first place, because the fire's been out for a long time. So what's the concern that what the person might do? There's a concern the person might decide, will forget that it's Shabbos, and he'll stir the coals, make the fire a little better to warm up the food. So that's the reason why they said you cannot insulate food on Shabbos, because if you get back in those days, if you would come to insulate the food, in the process of taking the pot to insulate, assuming that it's still hot, you'll realize that the food is not even hot anymore. So there's no point in insulating. You thought it was hot. And what you're going to do in the process, you'll stir the coals and make the fire higher, and you'll be transgressing Shabbos. Now, if you did insulate the pot before Shabbos, which we said you're allowed to take the pot before Shabbos and wrap it up in a towel. That's not a problem. Now, comes Shabbos, you're allowed to do whatever you want with it, which means we don't have the restrictions like when it comes to blech, we have restrictions. you take the pot off the blech, you have to have the intention, you put it back, you have to, all the conditions we wrote before on the board. You have to have your hand on it, you have to have intention, all those details. You don't need any of those details. If you take a pot and you wrap it up before Shabbos in a towel, then when it comes Shabbos, you're allowed to take the towel off or the blanket, whatever you use to wrap the pot. You can take it off, take out the soup, then cover it again, take it out, put it back. You can add more material on it. There's no problem. Now, the question is there a way, we're saying over here that on Shabbos, you cannot insulate, you cannot wrap with even materials that don't add heat. So I cannot take a towel and wrap the pot on Shabbos. Is there a way how I could do it? I want to do it. Let's say the fire is out, I want it to stay on. Is there a way how I could do it?
Was it bad?
Pot, let's see it.
Um,
Is there a way you can do it?
Sorry, what,
The answer could be,
could you restate the question? Sorry.
is there a way how I could take a pot off the fire on Shabbos? We said you can't insulate it in a towel on Shabbos. Is there a way how I could? I'm allowed?
You said tinfoil doesn't insulate. Or could you put it inside of another pot?
How would that work?
You put it in one it's snug but not so tight and put that inside of.
Okay, so we're getting to it. In other words, when we talk about the provision of insulating has a definition which we never discussed yet. Whenever we discuss insulating before Shabbos, on Shabbos, this material, that material, insulating has a definition. What is called insulating? Insulating does not mean, okay, I put a towel over it. I'm going to take a towel. This is a towel, and now I insulate the pot. If I go like this, if it was a little bigger, that's what I have. Okay.
There's a curtain down there you could use.
Oh, perfect. Great. You want a bigger pot? No. It's my pot. If I go like this,
Sorry.
this is called insulating a pot.
No, it's not snug. It's not,
It's
but
not, there's no problem. Insulating means when it's like this.
Oh,
If I do like this, that's what
capturing, like holding, like,
has to be snug, right?
just
It's
another
snug.
word for insulating. I never realized that there's another word that would better fit that instead of insulating.
To describe it, okay?
Yes, completely. But I know, yeah, because insulating, I thought it was like your, I don't know, a needle or something. I don't know.
Right.
Insul.
Yeah, but that, when we discuss insulating, that's what we mean.
If
Wrapping
you
it,
search it up on online, it would say it's like snug, like that. We give a definition of that.
I'm not sure what you mean, if you look.
You said the word is insulating, definition.
It's the word I'm using is insulating, could be a better word.
Yes, that's what I meant. I didn't, okay.
But not snug just describes how you put it. Is there a better word for describing the prohibition? It could be, I don't know what it is. But I think that's a term that's used, because maybe there's the lack of there's no, I don't know if there's any other term, but the main thing is,
Describe it.
but the main thing is you know what it is. So when we talk about the prohibition of insulating, that prohibition is when you're putting it in a way where it's like this. But if you're putting it like this is not called insulating. So this you're allowed to do. Whether it's whatever we discuss before, on, add, doesn't add heat, that's not called insulating. Another thing is, now, just one more thing. Is there another way? So that I could do on Shabbos, but the question is there a way on Shabbos I could take the pot off the fire and take material and wrap it properly, wrap it like this? Is there a way I can do this on Shabbos? And the answer is there is a way, but not in the same pot. If I transfer it to another pot, now it's different when it comes to putting back on the fire. We said if you transfer it to another pot, you can't put it back. Over here, you transfer it to a pot, now you can insulate. So if you take the pot of food and you pour it into another pot, now you can insulate it.
But you couldn't put it back on the fire.
Hmm?
But you couldn't put it back on the
No,
fire.
now,
Okay,
now
I've
I'm
got it.
fine, but now you can insulate it.
Okay.
And the reason is because usually when you insulate in the original vessel to keep it out. When you insulate something, you don't transfer it to another pot because you lose heat. So they prohibit it in the method that people will usually insulate. There's the concern that we discussed before, you might make the fire higher. But when you transfer it to another pot, people, if they want to keep it hot, you don't transfer it to another pot. So once you pour into another pot, now you can insulate. Another method is if that's not a method, if the food is below Yad Siledis, then you can also insulate. It's not hot anymore. But this is a practical way how you can insulate. And we asked about a thermos. You're allowed to pour hot water into a thermos. Pouring into a thermos is 100% okay. That's not called insulating. It's technically insulating, but it's not a prohibition.
Not
because
Shabbos insulating.
Because it's not Shabbos, because we said you're allowed to transfer to another pot. When you pour into a thermos, you transfer it to another pot, so it's okay. Okay. Is there any questions? Understand? Yeah? הבנת?
בערך. אני לא מבינה למה אנחנו מכסים את הסיר.
עוד פעם? לא מבינה.
למה מכסים את הסיר עם מגבת? כאילו לא הבנתי כאילו את ה...
יש לך
I wouldn't even know what that is. You've never heard that.
זה הטמנה. מה זה אומר הטמנה?
איך מכסים עם ככה?
כן.
זה לא התמונה. התמונה זה...
נגיד זה הסיר.
התמונה זה...
If you Google the definition of insulation.
הכיסוי של הסיר זה לא התמונה.
It's never been used.
זה חלק של הקלילה, חלק של הסיר.
אוקיי, הבנתי.
התמונה זה כשנתנים עוד דבר, לא הכיסוי.
אוקיי. ששמים אותו מעל הפלטה בשבת? זה הכוונה?
זה הסיר, יש כיסוי. אם אתה לוקח את זה, עושה ככה, זה התמונה.
אוקיי. אז את זה אסור.
זה אסור. שבוס.
אוקיי.
Enjoy break, Shayna. Miss you.